Alrighty, y'all. Hello, and welcome to a pretty fun video. I think it's going to be, well, interesting, to say the least. Top 10 things America stole from Britain. We're going to be looking at a video from Watch Mojo UK. It'll be linked down below so you can watch the whole thing and browse our channel. And we're also going to be looking at an article after. So, same topic. Things America claims or, things America stole from Britain. I'm pretty sure some of these are going to be pretty eye-opening like these usually are. Let's get straight into it.
From pastries to patriotic sing-alongs. Welcome to Watch Mojo UK, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 things America stole from Britain.
He likes American stuff. Oh.
Before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more. While standout British inventions are subject for another list, today's countdown tackles typically American things, which the US has the UK to thank for.
Yeah, because straight up invention lists are actually very fascinating as well. I enjoy looking at those for different countries, but this isn't really that per se. Like he said, these are things that straight up seem to be American, at least from my perspective, but are not.
Number 10, apple pie.
Yeah, that one, this one doesn't hit me as hard just because I've never been a big pie person. I really don't eat pie at all. That's weird because a lot of Americans do, but yeah, apple pie seems like big Americana, but
as American as apple pie,
not.
Right? Wrong. The sweet treat is a staple on US dining tables, but the British were the first to serve it way back in the 1300s.
Damn.
A popular dessert throughout European history, with Dutch and Swedish styles also inspiring menus worldwide, it was taken across the pond with the 17th century colonists. Since then, apple pie has become a standout symbol of US patriotism,
as
well as a central component to a teen comedy franchise.
It's not what it looks like.
Number 9, YMCA.
Okay, first one makes perfect sense. Still a little shocking, but makes perfect sense. YMCA, though. What? How's this British?
Way before village people turned this institution into a cheesy disco anthem, and long before the YMCA swept across America, the Young Men's Christian Association was the brainchild of English philanthropist George Williams. Dismayed by working conditions in 18th century London, Williams conceived the now famous charity as a safe place for its patrons.
Oh,
While the movement's worldwide influence is something to be proud of, difficult to imagine Williams joining in with the dance moves.
Yeah. Okay, so this one I feel like would be very common on a list like this. This one you have, YMCA, kind of a big thing between the dance, the song, right? You hear it all the time if you go to parties or a club or something. Kind of like a classic, right? And so it's easy to believe that this is American from my perspective because, again, it's just kind of relevant in culture here. It's not something you really research, like where did this originate, because you just kind of exposed to it so much here, you just kind of assume it's American. This one, I'll admit, a little shocking. I've never looked into it. I just ignorantly assumed it was American. Like it just seems like it is, but it's not. And I think America probably does that with a lot of different things as a whole. Chocolate
bars.
I think
this makes sense. Actually, before they even get into this, let me say, I learned this the hard way very recently. I'll throw the thumbnail of a video I did very recently right here. I mistakenly titled it like American, chocolate bars over in Europe compared to like how do they taste their versions. Funnily enough, I think either all or most of the American candy bars I used as examples aren't American. I was told very often in the comments by y'all that Kit Kat, for example, and I can't remember the other one. I think Twix, maybe. Basically, a lot of the mainstream brands here that I think of as American candy bars, or at least I thought of before that video, I thought they were American. They're actually British. I was told that many times in the comments. So it is drilled into my head now. I won't make that mistake again. And I thought that was so funny because my whole life I thought stuff like Kit Kats were American. I don't know why. I just did because they're everywhere here, right? They're just everywhere. You see commercials for them. You see them every Halloween. So some of these famous candy bars aren't American, but it's funny. I guess I just grew up with them and I assumed they were because they're so common here, but they're not. They're British. And I thought that was actually really interesting when I finally found that out after all these years. So this one doesn't
Candy
surprise
bars
me.
are big business stateside. But before Mars, Hershey's, Milky Bar or Baby Ruth, there was one bloke in Bristol making confectionery history. Joseph Fry finalised the first mass-produced chocolate bar in the mid-1800s, around the time that Dutch developed a chocolate press. Fry's chocolate cream hit shelves in 1866 with a famed fondant filling, and the bar can still be bought today. John Cadbury quickly followed suit.
Interesting, 1866 mass-produced chocolate bar, and it had filling. Wow. They didn't start out with just a slab of chocolate. It was like
while the
fancy
likes of
off the
Hershey's
start.
didn't arrive until the late 1890s.
Wow.
Number 7, sandwiches.
Could I have a glass of wine?
Okay,
And a ham sandwich?
if you like.
With a pickle?
All right.
Thanks to world-conquering fast food outlets, Homer Simpson and Joey Tribbiani, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this foodstuff was a US creation.
This one, I'm going to disagree with. I would never think... are sandwiches like a big part of culture here? Of course, right? There's tons of different sandwiches you can have. But I think sandwiches kind of make sense everywhere, right? I could picture going, throwing a dart at a map and whatever country it lands on, I'm sure they have sandwiches in some degree, of their food culture, right? It's a pretty simple food item that you'd think, sticking some ingredients between bread, like not that revolutionary. I feel like that could have been invented forever ago and anywhere, really. I wouldn't have thought that this was American.
However, the history of the sandwich is long and complicated, and very little of it happened in America. While early versions are recorded across Europe, it's named after the 4th Earl of Sandwich in Kent. The story goes that he was an ardent gambler, and meat between bread was the simplest way of eating without disrupting a game of cards.
Sandwich for display purposes only and should not be eaten.
Number 6, The Office.
This one. Now, this one I didn't originally know because I was quite young, when not super young, but I was like a preteen when this came out in the U.S., and it was huge right off the bat. It's still huge now, has a cult following for sure. I love this show, absolutely love it. And I did not know originally that it was British. Again, I thought, big show in the U.S., must be American, just ignorantly assumed that. But I learned pretty soon after that it was actually a remake of a British show called The Office. And I have seen some episodes of that original British one, and it's very funny and enjoyable as well. But yeah, this one we definitely copied or whatever, the proper word would be. You guys definitely get credit for The Office. We stole it.
And yes, we mean the TV show and not the actual open-plan workplace, which is largely a German invention. Anyway, unlike a lot of American remakes of British TV, The Office US did manage to tap into most of what made its predecessor pair. But after 9 series and a shed load of awards, let's just remember where it all started. Steve Carell's Michael Scott is hilarious in his own right, but for fans of the British original...
But Ricky Gervais, kind of a legend, right? Yeah, he's hilarious, and they're both different, They both kind of have their own brand, and I'm glad it's not a one-to-one copy. A remake would be a better word, because the U.S. one ended up being really good. At the same time, there's no way they could have tried to copy the original one because, the actors, British humor, it's all going to be different,
He'll always be David Brent in disguise. Number 5, plastic surgery.
Wow.
Really?
That came out of me.
From Botox to boob jobs, America is the world's leading market for cosmetic surgery, with millions going under the knife every year. But the industry...
I would think, when I think plastic surgery and let's say enhanced human beings, I think of definitely the U.S., but I really more think of Hollywood, rich people, celebrities. That's who most people associate this kind of thing with in the U.S. I wouldn't associate, regular Americans with this. So if I go out to, rural Iowa or Illinois, I'm not going to see a bunch of people with boob jobs and stuff, right? It's kind of like a subset of American culture, if you think about it. I also associate it with South America too. That's like a stereotype. Cosmetic surgery in Colombia and Brazil and stuff. At least that's what I've heard through media and TV and stuff. But I would not have guessed that it was stolen from Britain. I did not know that.
By no means born in the USA. Sir Harold Gillies is often credited as the father of plastic surgery.
Wow.
A New Zealand-born, London-based surgeon who gathered leading physicians to treat thousands of soldiers who had been injured or disfigured in World War I. Gillies' work became a blueprint for all sorts of reconstructive procedures, and a starting point for today's aesthetic options. Number 4, the light bulb. A supposedly serial stealer of other people's ideas, Thomas Edison's light bulb moment is considered one of the most significant steps in modern technology.
Hey Edison, how about sharing some of those light bulbs, huh?
Hey, figure it out for yourself, man.
But experts are
Sounds about
continually
right.
divided on just how much Edison did to develop the design.
Well, I could tell you from my perspective, what they tell you in school here is they really paint him as like a hero. Tell you like how many things, countless things Edison invented. Of course, light bulb being, the big one, right? And yeah, full credit. And that's not me saying that. That's what I'm saying. The education system tends to lean that way here. I don't know if they still do now, but that they did when I was a kid. There was no mention of Britain in that at all. So now, of course, when I was older, I found out through, I don't know, various outlets that, yes, Edison was very famous for stealing multiple inventions. So, then all of a sudden the credentials go down and you start to, kind of be alerted more onto what really did he do and some of the other guys in America at the time. In other words, the more you learn, the more you discover maybe we don't deserve all the credit for a lot of different inventions around this time. Clearly that wasn't the case.
Before the Wizard of Menlo Park, there were countless other scientists creating electric light and light bulbs, not least British pioneers including Humphrey Davy and Joseph Swan. The anti-Edison camp claims that the inventor's only skill was knowing when to patent.
One thing Edison did invent, for 100% genuine Edison invention, that we use every day, probably, most of us.
Is it nasal hair clippers?
Number 3, donuts.
Whoa, wait, donuts?
Now, the origins of the donut are a sticky affair, with
I guess, you know what? I should assume a lot of just random, like, foods and pastries. Let me not get this wrong. I know a bunch of foods are not from here. I'm not someone who thinks we invented everything. I'm not. If you've seen my channel before, you should know that. I'm very open-minded and aware of the fact that there's a whole world out there, not just the U.S. Donuts in particular are, man, they seem like so American. They're like in every TV show, it might be relevant to a character. I think of like Homer Simpson and donuts. They're just in our culture a lot. And there's donut shops in big cities like everywhere. And, they'll have like different holiday donuts and 4th of July donuts, all red, white, and blue. But of course, while that may be true, doesn't mean that they were actually American origin. I just assumed it was. So this one's good. I did not know that we stole this from anywhere. I just assumed donuts have always been a thing here.
Claims and counterclaims sending historians round and round in circles. However, while a stronger suggestion remains that the Dutch took the treats to America in the mid-19th century, a 2013 discovery seemingly proves that the Brits were baking them at least 50 years before.
Oh, really?
Baroness Elizabeth Dimsdale's cookbook dates to 1800.
Yeah,
and
see the
includes a
Simpsons and
strikingly
donuts.
similar recipe. A deep-fried concoction of sugar, eggs.
Wow, so are they Dutch or British? Sounds like they were Dutch. People thought that. But then it sounds like only recently they discovered that they were making them decades before in Britain then? Interesting. You'll have to hash that out in the comments. Let me know. Either way, they're definitely not American in origin.
Butter and yeast, add some icing, and it's the real deal. Number 2, baseball. A national sport and obsession in the US,
Baseball? I'm sorry, what? Baseball is as American as it gets. That's even there's sayings here about that. You could describe something as oh, that's American as baseball, right? That is Americana 101. I've been a baseball fan my whole life. I have a baseball hat on right now. I played baseball my whole youth. How does this trace back to Britain?
Baseball was born in the UK. There are countless records of bat and ball games being played in Blighty, starting with stool ball in the 1300s.
Jeez.
Sure, the rules have changed and refined over the years, but the basic premise is usually the same. Someone pitches, someone swings, others try to catch.
You know what? let me be fair. That does make sense. And the reason being is, let's look at baseball, right? Essentially, the core of the game is, what is it? Someone pitches a ball, and now the player of the opposite team has a stick of some sort, a bat, whatever they were using in any time period, and they have to hit the ball. Not exactly a groundbreaking concept. It's not like it took humanity forever to invent that. Let's be real. As simple as that being invented hundreds of years ago. So if that's the case, it certainly wasn't invented here. That makes sense. I just never thought about it. I think of like American baseball has quite a history. Like, there is American baseball statistics from literally the 1800s. It's been a big deal for a long time here. And I guess sometimes, big surprise, Americans don't see past that. This one is a shock.
In fact, some
it's not
researchers argue
really
that baseball
when
is
you
an
really think about it logically, but it is a shock.
offshoot of cricket, an English obsession which didn't catch on across the Atlantic.
Yeah, cricket
At
took off
all.
everywhere else but
Number
here.
1, the Star Spangled Banner. We finish with a final salute for Great British influence on American culture, because the US national anthem is sung to the tune of an 18th century English drinking song. Baltimore wordsmith Francis
Really?
Scott Key takes full credit for the lyrics, but
Right.
the melody was written by John Stafford Smith, a Gloucester-born composer. The
Wow.
Anacreontic song, as it was originally known, was regularly belted around a prestigious London gentleman's club, where wealthy people met to wine and dine.
Do you agree?
Wow. I did not know that. I guess that's a good spot for number 1. Yeah, I would have not guessed at all that had British origins when it comes to the actual melody. All right, so let's move on to this real quick, see if any of these are different. Top 10 things the U.S. took from Britain. This is from quite a few years ago. Let's see, national anthem. Okay, it's on here as well. I can't believe it. English scientist William Henry Fox Talbot is credited with the first demonstration of a negative process of photography that could generate unlimited prints. Wow, interesting. I mean, I would have thought movie theaters were a thing everywhere. I don't know if I would have necessarily thought like we stole that or like we invented that, but it's definitely a huge part of our culture, right? Movies in general, and of course, going to the movies, drive-ins a long time ago, and movie theaters today. Interesting to hear that has actual British origins. Steam locomotive. Now, I'm not a train expert, but again, when I look at this, I think American too. Holy crap. Internet. Really? Language. This is hilarious. I'm so glad this is in here. This is a thing on some of my other videos when we talk about funny tourists or, Americans online that post just off-the-wall stuff that are really trapped in that American bubble. This is funny because, yes, not many I've met, but there are some Americans out there that aren't gifted intellectually and think that English is from this country and we invented it and it's our language. And that's hilarious because I think there's quite a correlation between England and English. I'm not a genius. It just makes sense to me. Yeah, English is from England and it has quite a history long before the U.S. was a thing. So that is funny that some Americans think that we invented this. Television, interesting. I always thought television actually was invented somewhere else. I didn't know when, but I just know, of course, it became a big thing here, like a lot of things. This actually was invented in the UK. It looks like as far back as 1926. First public presentation of television in Baird's, laboratory in London. 1927, he demonstrated a groundbreaking transmission of television pictures over phone lines. Then on February 8th, 1928, what is this name? Bard or Baird? Transmitted television across the Atlantic Ocean and sparked a revolution. That's wild. Automated teller machines, ATMs, are from Britain. I would have actually thought these were American. I'll admit that. I think of like financial stuff, Wall Street. I would have thought ATMs were, I don't know, invented in New York or something. So that's interesting. I actually didn't know when they were, I would have thought like maybe 80s ATMs. I feel like I think of more of like a modern thing. I had no idea they had them in 1969. That's actually kind of crazy. Submarine. Yeah, big time. Think of this with our Navy. But again, not at all. It actually comes from Barrow, England, from the start of World War I. That's incredible. Wow. I mean, this I've learned as I'm older as well. A lot of military tech might be, enhanced here, might be perfected, but a lot of it doesn't originate here. A lot of top military tech does originate in Europe, France, Germany, Britain, right? So as I'm older, I'm more aware of stuff like that. Postage stamps. I guess I never thought about these. I never thought that these were uniquely American, I guess. These date back to May 6, 1840, and they were issued by the British government, the penny black, in 1837. Finally, tanks. Let's go back to September 6, 1915, when Little Willie was born. He was the first of his kind and possessed destructive capabilities beyond anything previously created. You didn't think we were talking about a child, did you? Little Willie was the first tank to roll off the factory line in England. It weighed a staggering 14 tons and could only travel 3.2 kilometers per hour, 2 miles per hour. Wow. That's painfully slow. Although it's pretty cool. I mean, think about it. 1915, we barely had think of how cars were in 1915. They were still so new and they were so basic and slow and everything, right? So having an armored tank, that would actually be pretty impressive for 1915 if you really think about it. But yeah, that's it. I can't wait to hear the comments on this one. I learned a lot from the comments, so I'll probably learn more from y'all down there than I usually do in these types of videos or articles. Very interesting, though, I will say that. And just another case of a lot of things we tend to take credit for or think are so American, and in reality, when you find out they're not, it's pretty interesting. And it feels weird, to be honest, but I find it very educational and makes me more well-rounded, I feel like, after I learned the truth. That was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I appreciate you watching. It's going to be it for this one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.